Anyways, the last movie we watched this week was Nico's pick, that being the 1999 film The Green Mile.
Alrighty, folks, so The Green Mile is a film about Tom Hanks recounting his time working as a prison guard, in which his prized UTI was stripped from him in exchange for immortality before he cruelly executed an innocent magical black man. Tanner, what's your fun fact?
Fun fact, oh boy, I can't remember. Oh, Michael Clark Duncan, the guy who plays Sean Coffey, was similar height to Brutus and shorter than Warden Howell. So they had to use creative camera angles and tricks to make him look so much taller. For example, Tom Hanks frequently had to stand in a ditch.
Good fun fact, I like that.
That guy's usually pretty big, too. That's shocking to find out.
Yeah, I did actually watch some behind-the-scenes thing. It's funny seeing the little rigs they had. Like, there was a section where they're walking him down the block, and they just had him standing on, like, fucking crates. It's very funny.
Fun. Alright, I am ranking this one at an S-. Dylan, how about you?
I am very close to that. I gave it an A+.
Dude, I'm also at an A+.
I guess I'm a hater. I'm just at a solid A.
Me and Tanner are in sync this week, dude.
Piece of shit.
Guys,
another question here for you. Did this film make you cry?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Damn.
Do you two just not have hearts or something? What's the fucking deal?
I feel like it's well established I don't cry at movies.
We'll find one eventually.
The Iron Claw.
Oh, yeah.
I think the saddest part of this movie for me was, of course, just the classic scene where the guy is more afraid of the dark than he is of his own death. That almost got me. I definitely felt very emotional during some scenes, but it never brought me to tears.
I cried when they put him in the electric chair.
Same here, dude. Same. That entire sequence, just from like when fucking Tom Hanks is talking to him in the jail cell up through when they're actually going through with the execution, I was just fucking whimpering the entire time.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the talk he has with Coffee, whatever his first name is, John.
John.
Prior to actually like walking him down the block to the chair, it's such a tragic sequence of events. Like the whole 15 minutes sequence was fantastic.
Yeah, this is one of the rare movies where it took its time and kept its pace, and I couldn't even be mad at it. I think the time used in dialogue and narrative was very well used. I think the way in which this movie went about everything was super nice. I thought it was very interesting how the characters handled this guy just having magic healing powers from God, basically, and how they basically were just, not necessarily freaking out. Which at the same time was kind of weird. Like, they didn't have any disbelief. And just, I like how in this movie the guards were like, how can we use this guy for good? And just trying to figure it out. And then, the scene where the murderer guy who's being a real handful touches him and he has flashes. And then we find out later that's the guy that did the horrible things to those two girls. So, the violence we had seen enacted upon him, where it was essentially killing two birds with one stone, was very justified. And I just like how those two characters got their just desserts and how everything in this movie worked out in just a really neat fashion. But yeah, I think the character development between all the characters is great. I think the acting between everybody is great. Very funny they have the generic old guy from The Walking Dead and all those movies in here. He fits his role in this movie accordingly to those other ones very well. Yeah, they really, I think another part that almost got me is when the guy with the mouse was executed. They did a really good job setting up the emotion behind all of these characters. And just really making you feel the intensity in the movie when things were happening. I definitely was like, man, the way this guy is dying right now is so undeserved, and this prison guard guy is a piece of shit, and they very much set him up in the movie to just be such a hated character. And I like the poetry. Where he was supposed to be transferred out of the prison to go work at that mental hospital or whatever, and he ends up at the mental hospital, but he's a patient instead of a receptionist or whatever. I thought that was perfect poetry. I loved that shit.
Yeah, really poetic stuff. Yet second execution was just fucking horrific.
Yeah, that was
really rough. Yeah, this film does a really good job of humanizing these characters who, for the most part, have done really horrific things, And I think it's a good thing that the film really doesn't like focus on like what specific crimes these men have committed, and it's just much better off for it. Just because like if they did, that would absolutely risk us not feeling for them during those moments. It would make it very difficult to sympathize for them if we knew that guy fucking just murdered a classroom full of children or some shit like that. But like, you know, also the film respects the audience understanding that like these men are on death row to begin with, so they must have done something really bad. But, you know, despite that, the executions are still incredibly grim and we feel very bad for them. Something I'm curious to hear, guys. Would you want to witness an execution? Like, let's say a criminal murders your fucking child or something. Would you want to see their execution? Tanner, you're not allowed to kill them.
I wasn't even going to say that. I was just going to say yes.
Okay. I was fully expecting you to say, no, I'd put a bullet in his head myself.
No, that's you flanderizing me again.
I think I was telling this to Jackson. It's like, I can maybe understand the modern version of executions with lethal injections. I don't understand why or how they let people in to watch Death by Electric Chair. I think that shit's fucked.
I don't think there's much of a meaningful difference between the two.
I just...
If anything, I'd prefer going back to, like, firing squads or hangings.
I definitely disagree with that. I think that's worse than the electric chair. I just don't want to be in the presence of somebody I know is about to die. Maybe that's just a personal thing, it's a moral thing, whatever. I can't.
Why does the injection matter, though?
I didn't say I would do it. I didn't say I'd still show up. I just said if I was to choose between electric chair and lethal injection, I'd probably go with lethal injection. But, like, I still wouldn't want to be there.
I mean, I wouldn't want to be there either. I just think I'd feel some sense of, like, moral responsibility to, like, see it through, I guess.
I don't know. I do like how this movie almost paints it as John being wrongfully, you know, obviously framed because of the time period. And just how he's willing to write out whatever's happening because it's in the goodness of his heart to just be the person that helps other people. And like Nico was saying at the end of the movie, or Jackson was saying at the end of the movie, where it was like the talk that he was having, where it's like, I can't stand to be in this world anymore. There's so much hate and pain, and it just feels like, I think the words he used was like glass constantly pressing into my head, and it just goes to show they're painting the picture of the world we live in, but he's interpreting it through empathy, and just, yeah, his character setup was great, I guess.
Glass pressing into his head. He can perform miracles. Do you guys think John Coffey is a Christ figure?
I think it'd be
he's
wrong
black.
to kick this man off the podcast. This man has never heard of Black Jesus before, clearly.
Hot take. I'm wondering if you guys agree with this. I think this movie would actually be more interesting, like to think about, if John Coffey was guilty.
I agree.
Yeah, I guess, because I was sitting through the whole movie being like, I have a really strong feeling this guy's just being persecuted because he's black. But yeah, I think that would make it.
I don't know.
I think that would make it more
interesting. I get that's what they want you to think, but like, I have a feeling, in a real life scenario where like it is this mob of people just wandering upon this giant holding bloody girls, I have a feeling his race doesn't matter in that scenario.
I don't know. I saw that and I was taking in the information and I didn't think that at all. That it wasn't my first thought anyway.
Well, so if you do that though, there is a problem that it loses the angle of Tom Hanks's character having to deal with like the moral dilemma of like, well, I know this man is innocent, and yet I have to execute him regardless. And
yeah,
which was pretty strong to the movie. Yeah, I agree.
It's definitely a bit of a trade-off. I guess it's a pretty straightforward trade-off, because I was kind of thinking that, I mean, I have some amount of movie literacy, so I knew he was going to be innocent, but I was also thinking to myself, I do think it's more interesting wrestling with this idea of like, oh, he has this power that he can totally use for some great good, but like something happened that made him do this horrible thing, and how do you wrestle with that?
Yeah, because then that would also like remove the one guy that got added halfway through the movie, and like then what?
Why would it need to remove him?
Because he's the one that actually committed the crime.
Yeah, but you can just have that not be the case.
Yeah, but I guess what purpose would he really serve?
He's a crazy evil guy.
Yeah,
I guess so.
We just have him.
I do think a funnier bit to this movie. So, in a weird way, he was the comic relief. I don't know, that sounds really morbid, but it's so funny because he's like a child where they want to do bad things, and they will publicly do bad things, and then they whine and throw a fit and throw a tantrum and apologize profusely when when the consequences are thrust upon them, and that's just who this guy was. He's just doing all this shit, and then by the time they want to put him in the padded room, he's like, oh no, I'm sorry. I just thought that shit was golden. I think that was a good character bit that we needed.
I'm happy Dylan mentioned that, because we've been talking a lot about like the doom and gloom of this film, which is easy to latch onto, but a pretty good portion of this film is also much more lighthearted and pretty comedic as well, which is something I really don't hear anyone talk about when it comes to this film.
Yeah. I'm also gonna echo your guys' other positives. Yeah, the performances are really good. It makes you think. It's got really good characters, really well-defined characters that are easy to glom onto. Fantastic pacing for a 3-hour film. I think the pacing here is outstanding. One thing I really appreciate is I think it actually approaches the death penalty in a very mature way, where it isn't just like wagging its finger at you as the audience is saying the death penalty is bad always. You know, it's like it is leaving room for being like maybe this is a legitimate function of the justice system, but it's like introducing maybe this little edge case to maybe get you to question that, while also ultimately not really condemning the institution outright.
Yeah, and along those lines, and I don't know if I could call it subverting expectations, but I feel like if anybody goes into like a prison setting, they expect, abusive guards, poor conditions, poor treatment, XYZ. I like how this movie doesn't do that, and in fact, all the guards are like, and I wouldn't say they explicitly state it, but it does get to a point where there's a line along the lines of, these guys are already dying and are like ruminating on what they've done. We don't need to treat them worse than how they already feel. And I thought that was perfect. I think it was a really good character addition that we needed, especially, I think it was Tom Hanks' character, but especially for his character, just to show where he is in the headspace of things. I do think that, because Shawshank Redemption was kind of this way too. It was probably a little bit more strict and, maybe a little more harsh. But it goes with the lightheartedness that we were just talking about, where you have these guards, they care about the inmates, they're trying to keep them healthy. These guys are about to die, let's treat them like human beings until then. And this other guy is a piece of shit for trying to, do the things he's doing. And, I really appreciated that tone of the movie, where it's like, prisons don't have to be bad. Now, is it realistic to say whether or not they are? I have no clue. I've never been to one. But I do like it in this movie. I think it's a nice touch.
Well, guys, do we have any final thoughts on Green Mile? The Green Mile?
Great movie. Love this movie.
Did Jackson get to talk about it?
I don't think I literally said a single word this entire review. What
Why
you guys
that?
said. I don't know. I just never found a good spot to jump in. I think my only real gripe, and it's still kind of just a minor one, like I think this movie's fantastic. I think the acting is probably one of the best parts of it. That kept it very engaging. The pacing too, like Tanner said, was fantastic. I didn't feel bored at any point. It's a little goofy though, which took me out of it at times a bit, I would say, with the mysticism stuff. I get what they're going for, but a little goofy. There's some comedy scenes, like Nico was saying, that feel a little bit like, I don't know if they fit super well in this movie. You could say they're like a point of brevity or something with the dark undertones, but for me, I don't know, I wasn't crazy about most of them, I wouldn't say. It's still a very solid movie for me, though. It was a sleeper. Stephen King used to keep writing stories about prison.
Yeah.
There you go. Dude, this might just be me being internet brain rotted, but like, when he healed the wife and he's just like open mouth kissing her, I am just like, okay, Stephen
Dude, he's
King,
cucking
why?
you right now. The big black man is literally cucking you right in front of your eyes.
I wasn't taking it that far, but I was like, okay, Stephen King, this was a intentional decision on your part to have the magic work like this time, when he doesn't do this any other time
I do think that if you were to say, Dylan, what is the most unbelievable scene in this entire movie, I would probably say the fact that the warden guy is okay with this big black man walking into his room with his wife and immediately starts kissing her.
Yeah.
It's just so not believable. He doesn't try to stop him.
I guess I'm just gonna ride this one out, see what happens.
He's going off of the word of, like, the 3 guards that are in charge of him, like, so I guess there's that, but, like, I don't know if I can fully ride
And that's
with
not
that.
a negative at all. It's just a funny little thing that makes you go like, well, that was a choice.
This is another minor thing for me as well, is I'm not crazy with the speed they kind of just wrapped up a lot of arcs, that being clearing John's name, killing the actual guy, and then getting the main antagonist, the fucking dickhead, thrown into a mental asylum. You know, it all happened very quickly and basically like one coup de grace. I don't know. They set up so much with all of these characters, and then it feels like a little bit anticlimactic to me the way they finished them all off, but that's just me.
To me, at least, it felt like a build-up and release, where, you know, the guard has been a dickhead the entire movie, we've seen that. The other guy is just a murderous piece of shit, and so, in his character's mind, it just made sense to, like, which, we haven't seen him do it before, which was kind of interesting, but just to take the curse, or whatever you want to call it, from the wife, the illness, and just give it to the guard. I thought it was fine, personally, but I do also think it's weird how usually mysticism in movies that are pretty much based in reality are kind of a little off. I do like how in this movie it's not so wacky or out there that it ruins the movie, which, you know, none of us have said that either, so I'm glad to see, like, the fact that this man just has magical healing powers didn't ruin the movie in any sort of way.
Our first time reaction to seeing him do that, though, was very funny.
Yeah. It was, the first time was like, what the fuck? They're just gonna straight up say he has god healing powers, and then, but, you know, fine movie. Fine.
Well, alrighty, fellas, and with that, I'm sticking with my S-. I like this film a lot.
I'm still gonna stick with my A+. I don't think it's quite as good as Shawshank Redemption.
I'm also sticking at my A.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. I'm gonna stick with my A+.
Based.
And it lands at an A+ overall.
Let's go.
Whoa. So close.